All right, welcome to Locked Social Studies. Today we're going to talk about the Industrial Revolution working conditions. This is Unit 9, Lesson 5. So let's go over what we're going to do today. We're doing an introduction to the unit right now, to the lesson right now, which includes your target and success criteria, which we'll go over next. Then we're going to do our lesson, talk about the Industrial Revolution, the working conditions, and child labor. Child labor? Wow. Okay. Then you get the chance to go over your key vocabulary. Then you're going to have an assignment or a couple of activities, I should say, within that assignment to do. So, without further ado, let's go over our target. Our target is I will learn about the working conditions during the Industrial Revolution and the people who led changes to improve those conditions. My success criteria is I know I have it when I can explain some of the challenges working class people face at work and why many fought for change. So let's get ready to go and let's move right on in to the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution working conditions. Let's look at this picture. What do you think about that picture? Looks pretty cool, huh? Look like it's fun? Well, for several decades, especially between the Civil War in the 1860s and World War I in the 1910s, American workers were presented with millions of new job opportunities in new and emerging industries. However, many of those job opportunities came with low pay, dangerous working conditions, and long work schedules. There's a picture. Oftentimes, workers would work 10 hours a day, 6 days a week. Some worked even more, which equates to 60 hours a week. Today, for example, most full-time employees work 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, which equates to 40 hours a week. That is if you're an hourly employee, to be honest. A lot of jobs nowadays, especially if you have a college degree, are not hourly. They are what we call salary, which you get a certain amount of pay as long as you work, as long as the employer says. So, in addition to long work schedules, workers were often exposed to dangerous toxins, such as harmful dust particles and heavy air pollution, as well as extremely loud machinery with little or no hearing protection. Such dangerous work environments would be considered illegal today. Making things even worse was the fact that factories and mills were crammed with machinery and workers, poorly lit, built with too few exits in case of a fire broke out, and exits that did exist were often locked or blocked to prevent workers from taking unauthorized breaks. Had very poor air circulation. Now that exit thing really came into play in New York City in one of the offices there. I forget what year it was, but there was a fire on like the 9th floor, I believe it was, 9th or 10th floor of that building. When they first started building buildings higher and higher. And everybody couldn't get out because they couldn't get out to exit. And there wasn't any, and the fire ladders were too short to get up there to put out the fire. So a lot of people started jumping out the building, too far for them to land and survive. And they either jumped out and died or burned up in the building. So that was a problem. Plus, workers all too often weren't provided with any personal protective equipment, what we call PPE, like gloves, hard hats, earplugs, safety glasses, etc. We talk about that in science as well, how you have to wear your PPE when you're in the lab. Workers also were rarely provided adequate training on how to safely operate the machinery that they worked on. So could you imagine that? It's like, there's where you got to be for your job. Have at it. And never told you how to properly work it or how to fix a problem if it came up real quick to self-diagnose things and self-correct them. Man, that would be awful. Nor told you the hazards of it. Man, not good. This is a depiction of a coal mine accident where the mine had actually collapsed in. Look at those guys. Not very good. In fact, during the late 1800s, workers in the United States had more industrial accidents than any other industrialized nation in the world. By 1900, industrial working accidents in the United States were killing around 35,000 workers every year. That translates to an average of 96 workers being killed at work every day. On top of the tens of thousands of workers who were killed at work every year, another 50,000 workers were severely injured while at work. That's an average of 1,370 workers being seriously injured at work every day. The photo is of workers who lost limbs as a result of work accidents. Making things even more difficult, companies rarely offered any sort of compensation or payment to workers or to workers' families who'd been killed or injured while at work. They were just out of luck. Let's talk about child labor. Unlike today, prior to the early 1900s, the United States had very little regulations or laws in place to prohibit children from working. According to the U.S. Census, between 1890 and 1910, at least 18% of children between the ages of 10 and 15 years old worked. That's almost 1 out of every 5 children worked. So you just imagine looking around your classroom and say we have a full classroom like we normally do every year, about 25 kids. That means 5 of them would not be there because they'd be at work. Think about that. That's the kids your age going to work every day. There's a picture of someone working there. There's another picture of the children working. These children often came from poor families and commonly worked on farms, in coal mines and cotton mills, or in a factory to help support their families. Young boys who were living in some of the nation's largest cities would work as newspaper carriers, who were nicknamed newsies. Newsies earned money by selling newspapers on busy city streets. Extra, extra, read all about it. A phrase often used when depicting newsies in movies. In many films, newsies are nicely clothed and cleanly bathed, which in reality was rarely the case. This is because newsies often came from poor families, or even worse yet, many others were orphaned boys who were living in the streets. Lewis W. Hine. Between 1908 and 1912, a photographer named Lewis W. Hine traveled the United States and photographed children from as young as 3 years old working on farms, in factories, and in mines, all too often in dangerous working environments. On the following slides, you'll see some of the photographs taken by Hine. As you see the photos, what conclusions can you draw about the children in the photos and what their lives might have been like? This is a young girl in a cotton mill. These 2 boys also worked in the cotton mill. This young boy worked in the coal mine. And finally, this young girl staring out of a window of the textile mill she worked in. So now, have we seen some of these kind of, I wouldn't say disturbing pictures, I guess, but pictures that make us think how lucky you are today that you have the opportunity to go to school and get your education and not have to go to work to help support your family. And I know in some families it's tough, but still, we get to go to school. So now let's go on and move on. Let's study some more vocabulary for this unit. And then you're going to have a true or false assignment afterwards. So have a great day. See you next time in Locke Social Studies. Bye.